This is Glenn Campbell, speaking to you from the Regional Justice Center, Las Vegas, Nevada. Today's topic, why drug treatment doesn't work. Why slogans and education do not work. Why all the strategies we've been using to address drug abuse do not work. Drug abuse is a terrible problem in our society. It saps the resources of our society. It destroys individuals, and it does extraordinary damage to the people who are affected, to the families of the people who are affected. We really want to do something, and society is trying everything to try to do something about drug abuse. And the principal things that we're doing right now is we're trying to educate children about drug abuse. We have advertising campaigns urging young people not to take drugs. We're trying to treat the people who have taken drugs and try to get them off of drugs. Unfortunately, all of these strategies are ineffective. They just don't address the underlying problem. Remember Nancy Reagan's campaign, "Just say no to drugs"? Well, that little phrase, "just say no," completely permeated our society, and you're hearing it all the time. Even today, you're still hearing, "just say no" to something or other. It certainly took a hold in our society. The question is whether it had any effect whatsoever on drug abuse. And my contention is no, it changed nothing about drug abuse. There's no statistic that said the Just Say No campaign did anything whatsoever to change drug abuse. Remember, this is your brain, and this is your brain on drugs. Totally ineffective. Look at the DARE program. Now that's something that we do have some statistics on. DARE is drug abuse rehabilitation, drug awareness, something. DARE means something. DARE is a program in public schools where police officers and others come and talk to students about drugs. Now we can set up an experiment where certain high schools are exposed to the DARE program and certain high schools are not exposed to the DARE program. And indeed, those experiments have been done, and they show that the DARE program has no effect whatsoever on drug abuse. In fact, it may even increase children's willingness to experiment with drugs, because what we could see this program as is an education for students on how to recognize drugs and what each of the drugs do. DARE program, we really want to believe that we can go out and educate children about drugs, but the opposite seems to be true. The more you tell them about drugs, the more kids want to try it out themselves. So those things don't work. What else do we have? We have education, we have slogans. We can try to treat the people who have become addicted to drugs. So a lot of what goes on here is mandated drug treatment programs. If you come in for a certain crime and they find out that you've perhaps a drug-related crime, and instead of sending you to jail, they may send you to a rehab program, saying, well, as long as you go through this rehab program, you can stay out of jail. So of course the addicts want to try the rehab program. The question is whether it changes their addictive behavior. And I believe the statistics say it does not. That if you force someone into a drug treatment program, yes, they're going to stick with whatever program you give them for as long as they have court supervision. As soon as the court supervision ends and they're free to go back to their old ways, of course they go back to their old ways. Drug treatment doesn't work. That's the big secret of these social service programs, and professionals know it. Some professionals know it. Some professionals recognize drug treatment doesn't work, but it's a huge business, making a lot of people a lot of money to treat people for drug addiction. The only problem is it doesn't get them off drugs. There's a basic fundamental flaw in drug treatment. The fundamental philosophical flaw in drug treatment is that you're putting your cure in the hands of someone else. If you're forced to go through a drug treatment, or you're going to assume the drug treatment is going to cure you. That's the fundamental assumption of drug treatment, is someone else is going to cure me. So as long as the program is going on, as long as someone is paying attention to you, you very well may stay off of drugs. That ends as soon as the program ends. As soon as drug treatment is over with, people go right back to their old ways. You basically cannot negotiate with impulsive behavior like that. You cannot reason away impulsive behavior. It doesn't matter what the addiction or the impulse is. You can't have a advertising campaign to stop child abuse, because child abuse isn't a rational thing. You can tell people on billboards, don't abuse your children, and it's still going to happen, because impulsive behaviors like this are immune to reason. They're immune to language. The only way you are ever going to stop impulsive behavior, as much as any technique works at all, is pain. People do get off of drugs. They do manage to change their behavior, but the only way this usually happens is people get beaten down by it, and they decide on their own to change. Once they decide to change, then any treatment program will work. Once someone decides to get off drugs, you can enroll him in a forestry program and he will get off drugs. If someone is not taking responsibility for his addiction, if someone is saying, this isn't my program, this is as long as he can say this is not my problem, someone else is going to cure me, then he's not going to be cured. All of these impulses to create slogans, to educate people, to try to treat people, they just don't work, because they're not recognizing essentially what drug abuse is. It's not a neurological problem, although the brain is involved. It's essentially a personality and a philosophical problem. It's clear that people who are impulsive, people who are ruled by their emotions and ruled by their tastes, are more likely to become addicts. People who are rational, people who are logically dominated by reason, do not get on drugs. And this happens because your family was rational. If your family is functional, you're less likely to be on drugs than if your family is dysfunctional. That's the core root of drug abuse. Everything else we do is just treating the symptoms. And when you treat the symptoms of something, you don't get to the underlying cause. And I'm not saying that there is a way to treat dysfunctional families, that there's a way to create more dysfunctional families. It's a complex thing. But just creating a slogan. Today's slogan is, parents, talk to your children about drugs. And that's based on research that says that parents who talk to their kids about drugs are less likely to have drug-addicted kids. Well, that's not a function of talking to your kids about drugs. That's a function of having parents that communicate well with their kids. Parents who communicate poorly with their kids are more likely to raise drug addicts. But you can't just create a slogan that says, talk to your kids, and suddenly these relationships are magically going to work. Because if someone can't talk to their kids at all to begin with, just having the slogan isn't going to improve things. There is so much nonsense, utter nonsense that's spread about drug abuse and how to treat it. And it's basically because people are making money. People are making money by selling treatment programs to courts and to individuals. But the real statistics are really appalling. No better than a placebo effect. When a drug treatment plan seems to work, like AAA seems to work for some people, it's because those people have decided to change, and any program at all would probably help them. It gets me mad how we are offered this solution to a terrible problem, and it's just to make people money. It's just to give everybody the satisfaction that maybe they've done to address the problem. But our drug abuse problems don't get any better, because we as a society have resolved to deal with things at a superficial level. We're not going to do things to support families. We're going to come up with catchy slogans. We're going to come up with superficial education programs. We're going to try to treat people and take responsibility away from them instead of giving them the responsibility. I'm sorry, but it just doesn't work.